That's number one. Number two, to still run around and pretend like Elon or anybody on the right are committed to free speech as we watch the crushing of dissent with regard to Palestine in particular is so laughable that it is preposterous that you guys still make these claims.
The vanguard will be there, sir.
Let me say a couple things. First of all, I think Elon Musk did the country a great service by establishing the largest free speech-based social media platform in the world. But once he released all of the hard evidence that the government was working with executives at Twitter to censor political speech or speech about health or any speech that wasn't okay with the government, he put a target on his back. He was almost immediately the subject of 9 different investigations. I think he figured out that if Kamala Harris was elected, they would have probably canceled his government contracts, destroyed his companies, and perhaps even put him in jail. So he helped Donald Trump, and I think he was of substantial help, although only Donald Trump elected Donald Trump. I've written a book, the Clinton's War on Women, covers the Epstein matter very exclusively. I read all of the pleadings of the Epstein victims. There is nothing to this. Donald Trump was on Epstein's plane one time. It flew from New York to Palm Beach and back. Marla Maples, his wife at the time, and his daughter Tiffany were on the plane. Never went to the island, never went to his ranch. This is a canard. I think it was irresponsible of Elon to throw it out. I, too, would like to see the release of the files. However, I think Kash Patel summed this up. The DVDs, the hard drives that were removed from Epstein's home seem to have disappeared under the previous administration. So, and the impeachment thing is beyond the pale. Elon is right. We do need to cut federal spending. I would just argue that the big, beautiful bill was not the place to do it. The tax relief there in itself merits the passage of the bill. They just sent a rescission bill up for $9 billion. Seems like a lot of money, but it's about 5% of what Elon Musk has identified. We're going to have to do much, much better.
Okay. I saw you smirking a bit there, Krystal. I don't think.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. I promised I wasn't going to break in during that painful sewage drivel that Roger Stone put forward, but oh my goodness, it was hard. I'll let Krystal do the responding.
Yeah.
I don't think you're fully buying into Roger's narrative of this, so over to you.
So, I mean, let's start with the Epstein piece. We have tapes of Jeffrey Epstein saying he and Trump are besties for a decade. We have photos and videos of them together. We know he was on the plane. Now, suddenly his administration, they did this fake thing with the influencers where they released these binders of information that was already public. Now you have Kash Patel going on with Joe Rogan and claiming that the cameras were on the cell and that for sure we know he definitely killed himself. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to put 2 and 2 together between Trump's direct connections to Epstein and the potential, the pro-Israel tilt of the Trump administration, the potential intelligence ties, to imagine some reasons why this was never going to come out and why the right was foolish to ever believe that this was going to come out. That's number one. Number two, to still run around and pretend like Elon or anybody on the right are committed to free speech as we watch the crushing of dissent with regard to Palestine in particular is so laughable that it is preposterous that you guys still make these claims. Number three, on the big, beautiful bill, you are giving a giant tax cut away to the rich in order to make sure that you're cutting the healthcare of poor people to fund this giant tax cut to the rich. It's a gigantic giveaway. Elon is a monster. He's already, caused the death of 300,000 people around the world. The estimates are that that's going to be millions over time. But he's got Trump dead to rights on the Epstein stuff, on the fact that he was able to buy the election, that the tariffs are going to cause a recession, and also, oh, by the way, he should be impeached.
Dry skin, deeper wrinkles, and
dry skin, deeper wrinkles. What a hilarious
mic drop.
Yeah, that was a great response from Krystal. Obviously, a just complete destruction of all of the bullshit propaganda points made by Roger Stone.
All right, Clay, I can see you having, I think it looks like an anaphylactic shock occurring live on television. So over to you.
Well, first of all, let me start with Elon. He is the greatest capitalist, I believe, that has ever existed in the history of the world. You look at what he's done with Tesla. You look at what he's done with SpaceX.
How is Tesla doing these days,
Twitter,
by the way?
X,
Tell me
AI.
that.
It's one of the greatest success stories in the history of the world. So,
last quarter, more Ford Lightnings, okay? An F-150 model you've never heard of that you probably can't get your freaking hands on even if you wanted to. The all-electric pickup truck from Ford. They sold more of them last quarter than they did brand new Teslas. Okay, so for all of that success story, its stock has cratered. Okay, ever since he bought Tesla, or X. Now it's been falling apart. I almost said Twitter. I'm losing my train of thought here. But the reality is, every single thing he's touched, he's either bungled or its success has been responsible for, or responsible by, rather. I'm losing it right over here. But what I'm saying is he's relied on a lot of government money, $38 billion, and his successes have not been his own when they've come.
Yeah, he comes in and buys companies after other people already make them successful. And what's his contribution to the fucking world? A bunch of cheap bullshit cars that are all falling apart all over the road. You're going to call that guy the greatest capitalist of all time? I'm no fucking capitalist, but what an insult to, like, Henry Ford. What about J.D. Rockefeller? You know what I'm saying? What the fuck? Elon Musk, his legacy is a bunch of cheap cars littering the fucking road, disgusting cyber trucks breaking down and having to be recalled in mass after pillaging the fucking, U.S. taxpayer money for nothing. I created some tunnels underground that do absolutely nothing. Wow, good for you.
Actually, Gavin, you know what? You convinced me. This guy actually is the greatest capitalist of all time. He's responsible for nothing good. He created a bunch of useless crap. He relied on government subsidies. And the only reason he was able to rise to the top was because he was so fucking blood hungry. He was so thirsty for success. He was so out here willing to screw over anyone else and take credit for every single idea. He was a total fraud. He was the modern day Thomas Edison, if you want to compare him to anybody else, a total fraud who was beloved for his time. Right. But in a sense, doesn't that make him truly the greatest capitalist of all time? It just doesn't mean what this guy thinks it means. It means that through all of it, he was able to rise to the top and become the richest dude in history. Why? Because he was the best cheater and scammer.
Yeah. And it's pretty ironic, that you would bring up Edison, considering he's named his car company Tesla.
Exactly.
Really well. It is doing fabulously well.
How's that stock price
and
doing?
he's
How's
better
his image around the world? How many cars is he selling?
It's fabulous. The stock price is one of the highest in the valuation in the history of the world. If you're going to say it's not the greatest, okay, but it's one of the 5 or 6.
But isn't the problem, Clay? Let me ask you this.
It was worth.
Clay, let me ask you this.
This is crazy.
Let's not get.
Right, so
Tesla is a great. Look, I think. Look, here's the reality.
Tesla,
let me just say something. Tesla's a great company, but it's definitely had a lot of brand damage because of what's been going on with Elon in Washington, and that just begs the question: I'm trying to get an interview with Elon, I'd love to ask him. Does he?
I've got to make sure he kisses ass here.
Regret getting so heavily into the political arena, given the obvious impact it's had in a negative way on his personal brand and therefore the brands that have been built around him? Tesla, SpaceX, and others. I don't know the answer.
It's a fabulous question.
Yeah.
I think the answer, in stepping into Elon's reactions here on Twitter, I think the reaction would be, and the answer would be yes, because I think he thought, as many CEOs do, hey, if I get in and look at the books and I see the inefficiencies, I'm going to fix it. I think that's what he thought. He's an engineer at heart, and he looked at the books as a businessman for the government, as an engineer, and said, we're spending way too much money. And I think he has been frustrated by how little he can do when he wants to make something happen at SpaceX or Tesla or Neuralink or any of these companies that he owns. He can do it. I think the frustration with politics is not an engineering problem.
Why, if he could do it, why doesn't he do it? You said he could do it. He can't do it. Every single time he actually gets involved and touches something, it breaks, right? Every single time he tries to. How does Twitter seem like it's doing to anybody? You go on there recently. Does it seem like it's thriving? Does it seem like it's in its heyday? Does it seem like it's been resurrected? One, it's not even a free speech platform, okay? Elon changes his mind every 30 seconds on how he's going to run it. Remember when he said he was going to have an order of impartial people that were going to make all the decisions on whether somebody got banned or what the terms of service were and how they would be interpreted? That was a total lie. Remember when he said that he was going to allow the person that tracked his flights to be on the platform? That was a lie. The list goes on and on and on. He's violated it in broad daylight. And not only that, Twitter is worth almost nothing, right? Good luck selling it for even a fraction of what you paid for it on a free market, right? And the reason that Tesla's stock is so high is because it's been the product of an insane pump, okay? It was an insane pump and dump. People bet on Elon Musk because why? Because he was getting massive bipartisan government subsidies, okay? Elon Musk had figured out a way to weasel his way into the Democratic Party. And then when that didn't look like it was going to play anymore, he weaseled himself right into the Republican Party. People saw his ability to do that and said, yeah, I'm going to pump this stock because clearly this guy's embedding himself in a way and dealing to himself from the bottom of the deck. It was brazen corruption, and that's why it started to all fall apart. That's why it did lose like $180 billion in valuation or whatever the hell crazy stat that guy just said. It was like over $100 per share in value. I don't know how many shares of Tesla there are in circulation, but an obvious fuck ton, right? And he loves to talk about how like he went into his own pocket and he made payroll to keep Tesla from going under. It's like, dude, that is not a success story. That's because you were running that business poorly. That's because you tried to break unions. That's because you fucking made a bunch of shoddy business decisions. You spread yourself too thin. You bought 100 companies that were not profitable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And nobody wanted to work for you anymore. Nobody wanted to give you any more money. Okay, but somehow he gets to spin that into a W because he's the greatest capitalist ever. It's horseshit.
Yeah, it's such a fucking corny line. He's about to repeat it like 10 times.
Problem. It's a political problem, and those are very different things. And I think as a capitalist, he's thrown up his hands and said, this is frustrating.
I mean, he didn't.
Yeah,
first of all, I don't take it based.
I don't want to
go
there
in.
Too.
But they're put the big beautiful bill has a $1 trillion Pentagon budget. Like, this is an agency that has never passed a federal audit, so that would be the first place you look. And instead, he did nothing there.
He did.
I've never taken on its face.
No, that's not true.
I've never taken on its face the claim that Doge was about cost cutting. In any case, Doge is costing the federal government money based on the cuts they made at the IRS. It has made it less efficient. Just try to get your Social Security check and tell me how well the government is working in the wake of Doge. But Elon did accomplish some things that were important to him. All those investigations into his companies, which were rightfully going forward, that's all gone. The CFPB, the Anti-Scam Bureau, that was set to regulate Twitter, that basically doesn't exist anymore.
I think the
and he was
answer
able
here,
to
Piers,
suck out data out of the federal government. God knows what he's going to do with that. So yes, it's been damaging to him. I'm sure he has many regrets, but let's also not pretend like he didn't accomplish incredible destruction and damage that also personally was beneficial to him as well.
Can I just
I
add
don't
something?
think that's true.
Clay,
I think if Elon could buy back,
hang on, Brian, I'll come to you next, but just Clay, just respond to that.
I think in retrospect, Elon probably wishes that he had not taken the Doge job, because I do think.
Who's this guy in the hat? I'm sorry, but he does not get to talk at all. I feel bad for him. He doesn't understand how the deck is stacked. If you're not the most known quantity, i.e. he's the lesser known of the two lefties, I would imagine he's a lefty that's on this stream too, or this panel with Krystal, you have to fucking fight for every word. I would spin that hat around halfway and just charge right into the conversation.
Yeah, he does chime in a couple times, and from what I remember, he actually does say some pretty on point stuff. But yeah, Krystal's definitely dominating this panel.
It's made his capitalism jobs more difficult. And I think that's part of why he had the temper tantrum that he did. It doesn't change the fact that he's the greatest capitalist in the history of the world.
But isn't it more, Clay? Isn't it more this? Isn't it more this? Isn't it more that Elon Musk has got to where he is, which is the most successful businessman in the history of planet Earth, arguably.
Oh my God.
Building a number of amazing companies.
Yeah, it's crazy too what these guys used to be their only metric for anything. And that's your net worth. They don't care about your contribution to humanity. They don't care if you did a Sieg Heil. They don't care if you fathered a bunch of children you don't care about who hate you. They don't care if you fly in the face of every single family value that they claim to stand for, right? No, he doesn't support anything. He's not an American. They claim to hate that. This guy's from South Africa, and he's weaseled his way into our politics. If he was a Latino guy, if he was a guy from, Saudi Arabia, would they be so welcoming? Would they be so charitable with him? Obviously not, right? It's just the holes are everywhere.
Also, I don't know. I feel like if you're really the greatest capitalist of all time or whatever, then why do you need the American government specifically to basically rig the fucking market so that you can succeed at the expense of all your competition? Because that doesn't really sound like true free market capitalism to me. And again, I'm not even a freaking capitalist, but if you really are someone who believes in that system and takes it seriously, no, I actually don't think you would look at what Elon Musk has done and the way that, for example, Tesla has only succeeded because of the US's refusal to let Chinese EVs into the market, cars which are way better and half the cost, right? that would destroy Tesla immediately, even more so than Tesla's already been destroyed on the worldwide market. But the remaining places where he truly does have a stranglehold, like in America, it's because of the fact that they've rigged the game. That's more like communism, if anything, or at least the boogeyman of communism that right wingers constantly like to, beat up. That straw man, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's crazy. And that's the case with a lot of his companies. He obviously sucks a ton of taxpayer money through subsidies from the government. Like, that's not true capitalism. He's being given a huge fucking break by the government.
Socialism for the rich, rugged individualism for the poor, as American as apple pie, right? That was a Martin Luther King quote from back in the day. And it's never held more true. Nobody hates, capitalism more than the rich in this country, right? That's what they don't want you to know.
Yeah. Also, it's like, I kind of could understand if you're just like a dumb person, like maybe 5 years ago, 7 years ago, thinking that Elon Musk is some like genius, hyper intelligent capitalist guy or whatever. I understand that the propaganda was really intense and he seemed like, oh, he's like Tony Stark or, the real life Tony Stark and shit. But imagine saying all this crap, all this ball licking bullshit about how he's the greatest businessman in the history of the planet Earth. Imagine saying all that after the total crash out, the complete unraveling of any sort of dignity that this person had, not just with their, personal life, but also just their fucking, business acumen, watching Tesla's stock tank, watching him, go on the drug-fueled rampages, get into a fist fight in the fucking White House, right? Show up with a black eye on drugs, ruin Twitter, completely fail at doing this Doge project where you said you were going to, clean up trillions of dollars and waste, fraud, and abuse, only to come up massively short. Like, clearly this person is not competent. Maybe at one point they were, but not anymore. You don't need to come out here and lick the dude's balls anymore.
No, that's such a great point. And to be honest, guys, when I was in business school, there was a time in my life where I thought Elon Musk was actually like an aspirational figure. I know it sounds absolutely crazy. I was young. I was naive. I hadn't done all the homework and dirt digging that I could have done on what kind of a bad guy he was, how his ancestry was racist, came from blood money and, emerald mining and all kinds of exploitative shit. Right. But you just see him and you're like, wow, here's a guy who really did just want to succeed in business. He wanted to start his own companies and run them. And you think, oh, wow, he wants to run an electric car company because he knows we have to stop burning fucking oil. If that's a problem we have to solve. Yeah. He wants to fucking build a hyperloop between Kansas City and St. Louis. Remember when he promised to do that? People in Kansas City were so jazzed about that. That was one of the first things where I was like, damn, this guy is just a fucking fraud, right? Of course, it impacted me directly. I was like 19 and I was like, damn, this is stupid. He said he was going to do this and it would have been huge for our community. It would have revitalized St. Louis because they are going like this as a town. And it would have been even cooler for Kansas City as we go like this as a town. You know what I mean? He is a total fraud, but at that time, you totally could have believed that he was a good guy, that as far as capitalists go, as far as business people go, that this was what you would strive for, right? That even though he was rich, even though he was extremely successful, his ambition was human progress. He wanted to go to Mars. He would always talk about that kind of shit.
Yeah, 100%. It was a pretty brilliant act. But again, I can't imagine still at this late date maintaining this obvious ruse.
But always getting his own way, right? By common consent of people who work with him.
That's totally it.
A ruthless operator came into Twitter, fired half the staff immediately, straight out the door, and so on. He's a ruthless operator. He's used to doing things his way, and he's used to getting his way. And I think what he found in Donald Trump is somebody who's also pretty ruthless when he wants to be, and also absolutely used to getting his own way, and especially now he's president of the United States. And so there were certain big decisions which Trump was decided to take, which Elon didn't want to do or didn't like, but actually he found out that he's not as powerful as the president of the United States. And I think the reason that he may be deleting some of the more inflammatory tweets now and so on is he's probably calmed down a bit, and he's looked at the big picture and thought, I can't win a war with a
I've got to actually get back in bed with this pedophile. He thinks, oh man, I accidentally, I'm sorry, I put that back in the baggie. Oh, goodness gracious me, sorry. Oh, sweep it back under the rug. Pretty ridiculous. I mean,
crazy. Yeah, the temper tantrum. Like, bro, he's the world's richest man. He's a grown-ass man. He's not a child. Why are you giving him this excuse of he gets to throw a temper tantrum? He literally, if what you're saying is true, that he falsely accused Donald Trump of being in the Epstein files. And that's easily the highest profile case of defamation or libel that Trump would have ever encountered, right? And Trump loves to sue people for defamation and slander and libel. Remember when he fucking sued Bill Maher over a joke? He's, threatened all of sued fucking Ann Seltzer, sued all these news anchors. And now you're just going to sweep it under the rug when the world's richest man directly accuses him of being in the Epstein files and says that that's the reason why he won't release said files. And now you're just like, oh, whatever. The fuck?
That's how Donald Trump is in the Epstein files and Elon Musk. They're both in there. I bet they're both in there. I bet blackmail exists for the both of them. And Elon, I don't know. I just can't understand the rationale. This is a ketamine addicted man. This is a billionaire. I guess we can't expect him to act and behave rationally, but it is insane. And there's also no chance, I'm declaring it right now, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you'll disagree with me, but in my view, I don't think that he's ever going to be close to Donald Trump ever again. I think that Donald Trump is done with Elon, and while they might around the edges have less harmful things to say about each other, less they could shake hands once in the future, but he'll never be inner circle again. I think Donald Trump is done with him.
Yeah, I agree with the inner circle thing, but I do think that Trump's gonna try to keep him close and keep an eye on him, because if Trump really does have truly authoritarian plans, if he really wants to lock down democracy, go full fascist come 2028, he will need the support of super powerful people, oligarchs like Elon Musk, people who control things like Starlink, for example, which is increasingly important to our own military infrastructure. So I think that he's kind of playing his cards smartly, as much as I hate to say it, Donald Trump is here. In addition to the fact that he almost certainly has blackmailed that he knows exists on him, and that he probably thinks that Elon Musk has access to.
Yeah. I just think that, Elon jumped the shark. I think that there's no way for him to come back from this to the level that he was once at. But you're right. I don't think he'll be excommunicated from the island. I think that he's just not going to have influence anymore in a real sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I also genuinely think that Elon I do think he kind of regrets getting so involved. And I think he does we already see him sort of retreating back to his business, to Tesla and to Starlink and to all these other companies, right? Where he seems to be a little bit more at home. So he might have genuinely felt oh, fuck, I didn't mean to get myself in this much hot water, by joining the Trump administration. He probably, it's so many rich people and celebrities and stuff, they really overestimate how much the public loves them. So I imagine Elon Musk was just oh, people are going to love me for even just trying, no matter what happens. They're going to love me for even just trying to, fix the government and stuff. That didn't happen. He turned into a total albatross around the neck of the entire Republican Party, became the number one, symbol of everything that people hate about the establishment at the moment. And I just don't think he was expecting that, given his level of narcissism.
Oh, no, he thought that people would love him. Same way that Howard Schultz thought that everybody would warmly embrace him if he ran to become the Democrats nominee.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir.